Welcome to the Baby Playbook podcast. It's so great to have your company. We are doing a bit of a part 2 episode. If you haven't listened to last week's episode, it was with the amazing Jazz Kostov, where we talked about baby sleep on the go. Baby sleep is a topic I love to cover because it is a little bit complicated. It does throw you off in those first few months. So as much information as I can get out there as possible, that is my aim. So what we're doing this week is something a little bit different. We're switching things up and we're actually going to be speaking about ourselves. We're going to be speaking about mum sleep because this is also something that, of course, changes once you become a parent. It's the obvious, you get a little bit less sleep because baby's waking up multiple times a night. And that's something that you can expect, but you don't actually really fully understand the effects of it and how you can give yourself the best chance at getting a really good rest when you can. Until you're in the thick of it. So let's get some advice on that with Jazz Kostov, who joins us again, sleep consultant, registered midwife, nurse, a mum herself, and she is the writer of her new book, Let's Sleep. Thank you so much for sticking around, Jazz.
Thanks for having me.
All right, let's first get an understanding of really like what happens during this time. What happens to our sleep once we kind of become a mum, and how do, I think a big part of this is of course hormones, like a new cycle, new routine. How can this have a huge impact on us?
It's massive. And I think obviously when you have your first baby, that's probably the biggest time of really kind of an adjustment to your sleep and, not knowing when your baby's going to wake up, not knowing how much sleep you're going to get in a certain stint. I think that can be really hard for parents and particularly mums that are waking up to do night feeds, etc. It's really tough to actually switch off and get sleep even when kind of you have the opportunity to. So we know that, when you have a baby, your newborn baby will probably be feeding pretty frequently through the night. Very common for them to feed potentially up to every 2 to 4 hours, plus sometimes some extra wakes for settling. So some babies sleep longer stretches pretty early on, and that's fantastic too, but very normal, very, important to understand that your sleep will probably be disrupted in the first 2 or 3 months. And then having, like I'm sure we'll cover this, but having some things in place to help lighten the load, take the pressure off you, seek support, and kind of just ride that out, because those first few months are a little bit unpredictable. And I always say this to people that are really struggling, particularly around 10 to 12 weeks old, like I promise it does get better. There will be more of a rhythm to it. You will get longer sleep, like longer chunks of sleep at night, but it can feel like there's no end in sight when you are in those newborn days and just, really feeling tired. And I was there myself not long ago, like my baby's 7 months old. And even with all the tools and knowledge I have, that does not change the fact that newborns wake up frequently to feed overnight. So you're not alone if you are struggling there. In terms of our hormones and what's happening within our body, so we know that our sympathetic nervous system, that's what controls our fight or flight response, which you probably have heard of. The parasympathetic system, on the other hand, that's what's responsible for like our rest and digest functions. And that's kind of the zone you're in when you are sitting on the couch and you are calm and regulated, watching your favorite TV show. Your body is nice and relaxed. But what happens, if your baby finally settles to sleep and then, you're about ready to crawl into bed yourself, I don't know if you have found this. I've spoken to a lot of parents that struggle with this, and particularly mums. You get into bed and then you just cannot fall asleep. It's really hard to actually switch your brain off and actually fall asleep. And why this happens is because poor sleep actually leads to poor sleep. So when you're not sleeping well or having disrupted sleep, it actually makes it harder for your body to get the rest it needs, which is so cruel. Particularly when you're a new parent. Yeah, and it does have an accumulative effect. And I've read so many studies on this and read lots of experiences of this, of like, the amount of sleep deprivation you experience in the first year as a new parent. It does take quite a few years to kind of, for your body to get back on top of that lost sleep. So give yourself permission. If you're feeling tired, if you're feeling sluggish, if you're feeling a bit lower mentally, like that, it makes so much sense. Your body has a lot to deal with, particularly in that first year with your baby. But basically sleep loss or disruption to sleep, that interferes with how our body reduces and circulates cortisol, which is our natural stress hormone, which is really important. Like we need cortisol, circulating through our body, but we really want it to help it kind of regulate and reduce throughout the day. And when we're feeling sleep deprived and we haven't had a great night's sleep the night before, that impacts how our body gets rid of the excess cortisol, essentially. So when your cortisol levels are,
effect.
yeah, it does. And that's why when you get into bed and you're laying there and you're trying to go to sleep, that's why, because your cortisol levels are elevated. Your body is in that natural kind of fight response, like that fight or flight is triggered. Your sympathetic nervous system is really kicked in. And yeah, it's harder to fall asleep essentially. So, we'll talk about so many things we can do to kind of improve sleep. Obviously, helping your baby to sleep as well as possible really helps. But that's why I'm so passionate about it. And I talk about this all in the book, like really helping families to sleep well helps you to regulate your nervous system and reduces the time that you spend in fight or flight mode, because it's not a pleasant place to be in like all the time or a lot of the time. Like we want to try and get out of that mode and feel calmer, because that helps you enjoy parenting. It helps you feel better. It probably, I would imagine, reduces like how much we age and how quickly. Like I know as a parent, I feel like I've aged like 20 years in the last 5 years.
Haven't we all? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because I think what happens and we all get into this vicious cycle as well when you finally like lay into bed and you're like, okay, great, like baby's gone down, I finally like finished feeding, and then when you can't fall asleep, you're in this vicious cycle of panicking about not being able to fall asleep, and then it makes it worse, and then you're like really not falling, and then all you're thinking about is the fact that you're not falling asleep and you're losing time before the next wake up. It can get like really overwhelming.
Particularly if you're prone to insomnia. Like my best friend struggled with insomnia before she became a mum. And actually, ironically, her insomnia is so much better now. I don't know what it is for her, but most of the time it can go the other way, and it can actually really be hard for people that already struggle with sleep. Just mentally, like being able to actually switch off, and those elevated cortisol levels can really impact our ability to fall asleep.
Yeah, okay. Let's get straight into the strategies I reckon that you can recommend that can really help us to get to sleep. So this could be anything, I guess, from, when we're trying to lay in bed and in between wakes, but then also, I guess, setting ourselves up for a good night's rest. We talk about, and you talk about in the book as well, like a nighttime routine for babies. I assume maybe we also need a bit of a nighttime routine to help us get into that mode of like relaxation.
Definitely. It's just the basic sleep hygiene principles. So in the book, you might have read, an hour or so before your little ones go to bed, like walk around the house, dim the lights or turn off down lights and just use floor lamps. Like we have down lights in here, and then we've got a nice floor lamp. So we just turn that on, at 5:30, just before we start to wind Addie down and get her in the bath and things. And that already just kind of sets the scene a little bit to let them know that sleep is coming. And it's the same for us. I know for me, I just want to turn all the lights off and just have those dim lights on, and I just feel so much calmer already. Other things that personally really help me, is trying to have a fairly tidy room. So putting things away, reducing that clutter so that I'm not looking at mess, which I know is hard sometimes when you're backlog of washing or there's clothes all over the chair, but I just try and do a little bit of a tidy. I try and have made my bed in the morning so that it's a nice fresh bed to get into. Again, mentally for me, that really helps. And another thing that I love, and I've been doing pretty much every night for 18 months or so, is I listen to a little track as I fall asleep. So it's just, I can link it for you to pop in the show notes. It's just a nice little, it's just relaxing music essentially. And it plays for an hour. So on Spotify, I just set for it to my phone to turn, like to stop playing after that track's finished. and I fall asleep. So it just kind of helps my brain, kind of zone out. I really it just relaxes me a lot, particularly when you're a little bit anxious or worrying about when your baby's going to wake up next. It just kind of distracts you a little bit, and really kind of lulls you into, going to sleep. Other people find like bedtime stories, meditation really helpful. I'm still really trying to do meditation like consistently because I know how good it is for me when I do it. But like just making myself sit down and actually do it is another thing. Creating that habit. And I think like in terms of strategies, if your baby is struggling with sleep and obviously it's impacting yours, like taking the time to stop and think and ask those questions, like what do we want sleep to look like? How is this impacting our family? And I ask a lot of these kind of questions in the book to help you just stop and think and reflect, because before you know it, like 6, 12, 18 months has gone by and you haven't necessarily stopped to reflect and address what's actually happening. What do we want to change here? What would really help our family unit function more optimally? And then you could, seek support from someone or whatever that looks like, or make a plan to kind of to improve sleep for your family. But figuring out what's important, talk to your partner or support person, and really kind of making a plan there to help everyone sleep well. Even if that's, if you love co-sleeping, but it's really disruptive, like sharing a room with your partner because he's getting up for work. Like, what can you do there to make that setup better? Is it, sleeping in a different room temporarily or whatever? Like, everyone's setup is different, but just stopping and having a bit of a chat and making a plan.
Yeah, and really, I guess the other thing there is as well, like advocating for yourself, right? Because I think sometimes just expect this to be part of parenting, right? And like we really accept that from the get-go, and we accept that like, oh, it's just temporary and things will be okay, and like I really just need to fully commit to this. But I think, and for a lot of mums, I think what happens is as you start to approach the time at which you might be having to return to work, you actually start to realize, well, this is actually not sustainable. This is not, it's not healthy for me or my baby, right? Like I think a lot of the time we're not thinking about ourselves, but it's like you say, like happy mum, happy family. And if you are really trying to implement some strategies to help yourself get some good rest, that's only going to be beneficial for the rest of the family and baby and kids and husband and partner and whatever, right?
It is. And I'm so passionate about talking about this. Like, there is so much stigma about baby sleep, about doing any form of like in quotation marks sleep training, or supporting your baby to go to sleep more independently, or implementing a routine, whatever that looks like. But at the end of the day, if you come back to the question of like, why is this important to me? What am I struggling with right now? You're going to feel dysregulated. You're going to feel exhausted if you're waking up really frequently through the night. And if that has got to a point where it's really impacting you, it's okay to change things. It's okay to seek help. It's okay to support your baby to sleep more independently. You are not going to damage them. They will be okay. And most of the time, like crying when you are making changes to sleep is because they're telling you something's different. It's not because they're abandoned or like all of these things we hear on social media. It drives me absolutely nuts, because at the end of the day, like that poor mum that's reading that is just absolutely exhausted. Maybe she's returning to work and she's still waking up 8 or 10 times overnight, like feeding every hour, whatever that looks like. And she's feeling really trapped. And then she reads that like she's a shit mum for wanting to change it. Like, you are not. You are doing the best thing for you and for your baby. And like, don't worry what other people think. Ask those questions of yourself, like look inwards, just get off socials for a few days, really think about what you need, and then move forward with making a plan to make that happen, because you will thank yourself. Like, it'll be easier to fit in exercise. It'll be easier to get to work. You're going to have time in the evening to just sit and chill for a few hours before you go to bed. And that in itself is going to make it easier for you to fall asleep when you're getting time to actually wind down, rather than like having kids up running around until like 10 p.m. and then like just trying to make them go to bed, and then you know, whatever that looks like, and then you're falling into bed and then kids waking up all through the night. Like, it can be so much better and you can get so much more restorative rest for yourself and your family.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Well, we spoke a little bit just about their like bedtime routine. I think it's and it's so family based, right? I think when I was, starting to implement some sort of routine with my kids, what I did as well is I spoke to my husband and we put together a plan together, because the other thing is as well, you have to act like a team. It's
You
not
do.
all on you. And so for us, what worked really well is, okay, so my husband was going back to work. I was the primary carer. So I thought, what we're going to do is we were doing like a dream feed at like that 10:30 mark. So we would put baby to bed at that 7 o'clock mark. I'd chill for a little bit, and then 8:30, that would be when I would go to bed. Because what I always thought was, if I can get like that really nice stretch at the start of the night, then I didn't really care what happened after that. I was like, it'll be fine. He would stay up for the dream feed. So that was his task. And then I would get up for the next wake, and I would so actually just like starting that conversation, right? And going, okay, so like, what could this look like? Let's give this a go, trial and error, right?
Yeah. Ask. And it's not, I say ask for help. It's not asking for help. You're a team. So,
Yes.
Really kind of communicating together. And when you do that and your partner gets used to feeding your baby and settling the baby and everything like that, that takes so much pressure off you being the only one that can put your baby down for sleep as well, which I know a lot of parents, like particularly mums, struggle with, is just they're the only one that can put their baby down for sleep, which can be really tricky if you want to go out for dinner or like get to that Pilates class at 8 p.m. And it's really empowering for your partner as well, for both of you to be able to get involved with settling and feeding and things. So yeah, definitely communication. There is a whole chapter on working as a team in the book. I'm so passionate about that. And, with both kids, my partner's been, fully involved with, like, either of us can settle them, put them to bed, feed them. Obviously, when I was breastfeeding, you can't do that. But we've always offered bottles early, so that we have that flexibility. So just communicate, if you feel like something's off and you need to kind of tweak things, do that, because at the end of the day, that's going to make you feel more regulated and more content in parenting.
Yeah. Now, what about in between wakes at night? Because that can get trickier. So obviously, if you've been up feeding baby and then all of a sudden you need to get back into bed and you might only have like a couple of hours in between the next wake, do you have any strategies on how you can give yourself the best chance to fall asleep there? Like, I know for me, one thing was like I tried not to look at my phone while feeding at night, because that's obviously a stimulant. But anything like that we can rely on?
Yeah, I literally talked about that on a podcast just the other day. I was like, my one tip is avoid looking at your phone. And I'm so guilty of, I get up. If Addie has a night feed, I'll look at my phone and I'm like, why am I doing this?
Damn it.
It's just habit. But definitely avoiding looking at your phone if you can muster that willpower, and avoid looking at it. Look, I think it's really tricky, particularly when your baby is maybe in a pattern of waking pretty often overnight. It can be quite hard to get back to sleep when you feel like you're anticipating them waking again. So just, do your best. I think really kind of do what you can there to get back to sleep. Put on an eye mask, put on that relaxing track, do what you can to get back to sleep. But I think at the root of it is, don't be afraid to seek support to actually help your baby sleep longer stretches at night. So that you don't feel like you're kind of in survival mode the whole time. Because particularly once babies get beyond 4 to 6 months, like, it's really reasonable to expect that they could, you could get some longer chunks at night. Definitely not necessarily sleeping through all night without a feed. Very normal for babies, under sort of 8 months to potentially need 1 or 2 feeds overnight. But you should be able to get at least kind of 3 or 4 hour stretches of sleep. And that in itself really helps, just knowing roughly how many feeds you're going to be, like how many wake ups there'll be. Yes, there'll be the times when they're like, they're sick and they wake more often or whatever. But as a bit of a baseline, kind of aiming for that is really realistic. But yeah, just, do your best, be kind to yourself, and yeah, definitely put the phone down.
Yeah. Well, when I was giving some advice to a new mum friend of mine about the phone, I was like, just don't touch the phone at night. I know it's really hard. My tip there was as well, because she was saying that sometimes you need to also like wake yourself up, because you're like so scared that you're going to fall asleep feeding this baby because you're so tired. So I said what I used to do was, first of all, I had like a little like I think it was like a red light. So instead of putting like lights on and like really overstimulating both baby and me, we had like this little lamp, which was the perfect, you could just chuck that on. It was very dim lighting, as you mentioned. And then that way we're not both like waking up like crazy. And then two was, if I really wanted to kind of like listen to something, or if like I knew the feeding, especially at the start with, for example, breastfeeding takes quite a long time sometimes with some babies. So you're like, I could be up for 45 minutes here. Like I can't just like sit here in this chair. I'd chuck a podcast on, because like that was a little bit less stimulating for me. I'd look at my phone for like that 3 seconds that I needed to put the podcast on, headphones in. And then I was like, okay, this is something a little bit less, stimulating than like looking at my phone, chucking all the lights on and like really having a bit of a party in the room,
Definitely. Yeah, it is. Some people like just cannot stay awake, particularly when you're so exhausted, sitting in a dark room and you've got the white noise going and you're just like, and also breastfeeding makes us sleepy. It actually, the hormones that it triggers, makes us, it's kicks off your oxytocin, which is like that love hormone, which makes you feel really relaxed and sleepy. And so that's why I remember when I was breastfeeding Addie, especially the first couple of months, I'd feed and I'd be like just so tired.
I feel like everything is against us. Do you know what I mean? It's like you're going to wake up and feed your baby in the middle of the night, but it's going to make you feel sleepy. Like, what is going on?
The other thing I used to do is like go into the kitchen. Like I remember particularly with Hazel, I was starving overnight.
Yes.
Like I would feed her and then I'd go to the kitchen and just smash like 4 lactation cookies with like, and not healthy ones, like full of chocolate chips. Just like eat all these cookies and then like go back to bed. I'm like, that's probably not the best thing. I've just eaten like all this fuel and like all this sugar.
Yeah. This is not helping.
But it was delicious.
Yeah.
It was like the cookie monster.
All right. And let's lastly touch on the day as well, because obviously baby has naps during the day and it's so much easier said than done sleeping while the baby sleeps. Okay.
Yes.
Like that is the most frustrating piece of advice you'll ever get.
Like the reel I sent you last night.
Yes. You sent me this great reel on this, because it's like when people say that to you, you're like, oh my gosh, like, please stop talking. Like you do not understand how impossible that is. And we do also tend to, the other part of it as well is like, it's not like you don't want to lay down and sleep. Sometimes it's also like you feel this guilt coming through of like, well, the house is a mess, or like I could be doing this, or I could be doing that, or actually I haven't done anything all day because this baby hasn't slept. So finally, when they do sleep, I do want to get something done. But it can be still a really good time to get some form of rest. I don't know if you agree with this, Jazz, but what I used to do was, like, I never slept during the day when my baby slept, because they only did that like 45 minutes for like a really long time. But I would be very disciplined in, I would just lay down. So like, even if I didn't fall asleep, I thought if I'm at least laying down and closing my eyes, I'm resting in some sense. Like I'm off my feet, I'm laying down, I'm not on my phone, I'm just taking a moment to like relax. And that in itself was a rest to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Definitely.
So maybe perhaps looking at it in a different way as well.
Yeah, I think napping during the day just is not always realistic. As you said, like you might have like tasks to do around the house. You just want to eat your lunch. And,
peace.
you know, a lot of babies under 6 months, like a lot of my clients are struggling with bubs that sleep for 30 minutes, you know, or 31 minutes, like on the dot, and then they're just like awake again. So it's really hard. Like by the time you've gone to the toilet, made yourself a cup of tea, had some food, you've got like 10 minutes and then they're awake again. So that's okay. Something I used to do as well, because I think I maybe had 1 or 2 sleeps like in the very early days. And then beyond that, I'd pop a show on, and at least I was just having some time for myself, you know, have some lunch, sit on the couch and watch half an hour of, you know, my favorite show. The other thing I would do is, maybe do a little bit of like a Pilates workout or something just on the mat at home. And at least then I felt like I was doing something for me. But yeah, I think listen to your body. I know those few times that I had a nap, it was because I just needed it. Like I felt so exhausted, particularly in the first month or two when your body's just recovering, maybe you're breastfeeding and like that's so demanding on your body and you're running, particularly when you're running around after little ones. Like if you can, and they're your older ones in care, like just if your body is telling you need to sleep, like listen to those whispers of what your body needs. If it's just like, I know even now, Addie's like 7 months old, but I know sometimes at lunchtime when she's sleeping, I'm like, I could be creating all this content for work or whatever. But sometimes like the other day I was like, I just need to make some fried eggs and my sauerkraut and my tea and just sit down and watch Outlander for 2 hours. And that's what I did. So
yeah, we all need that.
Yeah. And I felt so much better. I was like, just zoned out and just enjoyed myself.
Yeah. And you need it every so often as well. And I think the other element here is like a lot of mums, early on, you're in this as well, where I believe you mentioned that Addie's just about to start care, which will like give you a little bit of time to like to yourself and your business and stuff like that. But I think as well, especially in those earlier times, if you are really feeling it and you feel like you need some sort of just like rest or like time to yourself or something to recharge, even just, for example, asking, mum or mother-in-law, just saying like, hey, could you come over tomorrow to watch baby so I can just like have a little bit of a rest? Or if it's even like if you have that opportunity, of course, I know everybody's family situation is different and help situation is different, but like also just asking for that during the day, just that hour or two to yourself to really just lay down and like veg out and not have to worry about getting baby up,
Yeah. And it's, it might be for you to rest. It might be because you're really feeling like you need some self-care time. Like you might want to take yourself out for brunch and get a coffee or go to the gym. Like, yeah, I've really struggled with that this second time around. I think because my work is so flexible, I don't have to put her in childcare or, seek external kind of help from my mum or a nanny or whatever. That I ended up, it took months to decide. And like my mother's group girls would tell you, like every week, I'd be like, what am I going to do? Like I just felt like my body was telling me like I need something to change here. I need a little bit of respite. And she naps, like she's actually really great with napping. It's not that, but it's just I need half a day or a day just for me. So I think like the general consensus here is just like listen to what your body is telling you need, because you're in the first year, things are constantly changing, constantly evolving. The demands are constantly changing for you. So, we need to kind of change our routines and our sort of weekly schedule to support us throughout that year.
Yeah, certainly. Amazing. Thank you so much, Jazz. It was really nice to also touch on this topic alongside baby sleep as well. Two very important parts of that parenting journey. As I mentioned last week as well, you can keep up with Jazz on let's_sleep on Instagram and also her website as well, letssleep.com.au. You can grab a copy of her new book called Let's Sleep, or you can win one. We are doing a giveaway, so make sure that you head to heynicolinak.co to pop in your email and we could be sending you a copy of her book. Thank you again, Jazz. It's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.